Hey everybody, Oliver here from Blue Liquid Labs here in the dungeon. Today I'm going to show you guys how to remove fork bushings, how to insert new fork bushings, and how to size or burnish your new fork bushings. So to start with, I got this simple bushing removal tool. You know, it's just got these four prongs. You can stretch them open or you can close them up, you know, with your hands just to suit whatever fork you're working on. And this is a Fox 36 we're going to be doing today. So I'm just going to have a look and see more or less. Actually, that looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. Yeah, we'll start there. Okay, so I'm just going to show you how to put the tool in. And so with this tool, what it comes with, so the business end of it is stainless steel. This rod is like a grade 8 hardened rod with threads on the end. This is 4140 hardened to 30 Rockwell. So the hammer end that you're going to be hammering with is pretty hard, but the actual, there's a little button that's pressed in there. That's actually hardened to 60 Rockwell. So you can beat the crap out of it and you should be just fine. And sometimes you really have to, because in some forks, the bushings are like, yeah, they're like corroded in with the magnesium, and so sometimes you really got to wail on it, so it helps to have hardened parts to work with. Anyhow, I'm just going to show you guys how to insert that. We're going to unscrew the hammer end. There's a little bushing I provide. You'll see in a minute what that's for. So, just going to aim that down, get it through the hole in the end of the lowers. See, you can see it pops out there. And if you've opened the prongs up to just the right size, it should be pretty easy to get in there. And there you can hear that snap back. So on a lot of Fox forks, you can see that on the damper side, the hole is bigger than 8mm. The rod, of course, is 8mm. So that's why I include this little centering, like a little centering guide, or call it what you want, centering, bushing, whatever. We're gonna screw that hammer end on, and then we're just going to start hammering. And I have a metal table. It's pretty noisy, so if you have a metal table, a lot of people that deal in suspension are going to have metal tables. Just use a block of wood or something like that. Actually, even if you have like maybe like a 4x4 that you can stand up on the ground and you can put it on that wood, just put it on the flat, you know, seal, on the seal face, I guess. So just like that. And I'm just going to go right ahead. You can, like I said, these parts are hardened, so you can go right ahead and use a metal hammer. And believe me, sometimes you really have to. Okay. Okay, so that wasn't too bad. I can tell that one's going to come right out. And there we go. So that's the first one. And we're going to go ahead and let the tool snap back behind the second one. There we go. You can hear it snap. All right. Second one obviously has a ways to go because, you know, there's a lot of room between where it sits and the end of it. Okay, I can tell it's almost out. Just gonna give it a few more taps. Okay. So one of the things to keep in mind is for inserting bushings, you know, there is a measurement aspect to it. So you always want to make sure you measure one of the lower bushings, you know, at least one of them, before you go ahead and take everything out. So what I'm just going to do now, I'm going to take out the bushing on the other side, but I am not going to take out yet. I'm not going to take out the bushing on the bottom just yet, because we need to make a measurement. So you can see on this side it didn't need that little guide bushing or whatever, because that's an 8mm hole for an 8mm shaft. So you just put that in there directly, screw the hammer pad on. Okay, that looks good. Now we're just going to wail on it. All right. And so now you're going to see the insertion aspect of the tool. So later on I'm going to show you the bushing sizing part of this job. And I got this sizing tool here. And so what I've done is I've made the insertion tools modular with the body of the sizing tool. So every sizing tool has a sizing die on the end of it. It's got a 25mm socket. So you can use, if you don't have a vise, you can use a 25mm socket to loosen it. You can use a 5.4mm socket to loosen it. So 1-inch socket will work as well. I just use a vise, just give it a crank. The die should come right off. Okay. Body comes off. Threaded rod in the middle comes off. And we're just going to set the handle aside. There it goes. And so we have another pad, another hammer pad, very similar to the other one. And we're just going to screw that on. Slide the body of the tool down over that. And what we have is we have like a stop collar. It's got like a socket head cap screw on it. That slides right over. And then we have a plastic bottom out spacer that just slides on like that. And then the business end, which would be the insertion die. Now fortunately, just like with the sizing dies, each fork type, like 32, 34, 35, 36mm, is going to have a different sized insertion die. And it'll also have a different sized bottom out ring, because the bottom out ring, it's made to fit inside like the seal area. You'll see in a minute. All right. So now comes the measuring. So you can see I just stuck that in there like that. We'll go until, make sure it's nice and seated on the bottom bushing there. And that's how we know essentially where the tool has to stop. So we're just going to use our Allen key and tighten down the stop collar. All right, so now we know that that's a good depth. So we're going to take a bottom bushing, install it right on the end. And for this, and so we're going to tap it in, and only to the point where the stop collar stops against the bottom out spacer. And for this, I actually recommend you do it on the floor, just because I find tables are kind of bouncy, and they a lot of the time, unless they're really heavy, they absorb a lot of the hits from your hammer, right? So I just find that you get way better energy transfer with the hammer if you put it down on a pad. Just put a pad, some cardboard or something like that on the floor, and you get way quicker results if you just do it on the floor. Almost there. There we go. So you can see it's fully seated now. Okay. And so we don't have to be nearly as careful with the top one, because you just hammer the top one right until it's flush with the bottom of the seal area. So just gonna grab a top one, just kind of place it in there, and I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm just gonna put that up against the floor. It's gonna get better energy transfer, and this one should be quicker too, because we're not going nearly as far with the top one. check that. Yeah, it's got a little bit more to go. All right. So yeah, you just go until it's... Forgot to take the axle out of that thing. You just go until it's just flush with that seal area and no more than that. And if you overdid it, you can always just pop it out and with the removal tool and just try it again. But that's really about it. I don't think I have to repeat the procedure for you guys for the other side. I think you guys get the idea. So instead, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to move on to the bushing sizing portion, or the bushing burnishing portion, as they call it. All right. So for this, we're just going to have to do a switch to the bushing sizing parts. So you can see these tools are pretty simple, you know, especially the removal tool. Like I understand the need for complexity when it's needed, but in this particular case for fork bushings, you know, I think that this is a simple enough procedure that it warrants a simple tool, I think. You know, I know you can get fancy tools with, you know, where there's an individual removal collet for every single fork you have. But I find that the 4-prong tool, you know, you just stretch it open by hand, close it by hand, and that seems to work just fine, you know. It's a lot cheaper too. All right. So when you are sizing bushings, a lot of the time brand new bushings are super, super tight, and so what they require is you kind of a lot of the time you have to go at it with a two-step sort of process, meaning you start out with a plus 0.03 millimeter die. So in this case, Fox 36, it would be a 36.03 millimeter die. But my regular go-to die, you know, for service, when a fork comes in for service, we're not replacing bushings, but just my regular go-to die for just freeing up a fork is plus 0.07 millimeters. So in this case, it would be 36.07 millimeters. Now I know in this fork, the bushings are not going to be too bad, and so I'm not too concerned with going with the 0.03 first, like I sometimes would if the brand new bushings were super, super tight. You can check them by just sliding the uppers in and out, and you'll know if you have one of those tight ones when the brand new bushings are super tight. You'll know, like, the lowers won't even, like, not only will they not go down under gravity, like, you'll have to put force on them to slide them in, and that's kind of how you know that you're dealing with very, very tight new bushings. But in this case, I know that the standard, you know, my go-to 0.07 plus 0.07 tool is going to work fine. So I'm just going to go ahead and size them with that. And so, you know, it helps if you just put a drop of lube on the tool. You know, if you're doing a fork that's in for service, you know, that you're trying to free it up, sometimes you don't need to do this, but with brand new bushings, they're dry, so it just helps to put a drop on there, you know. So you put the axle in there, use the same hammer pad. I mean, I use the same pad on the floor as I did with the hammering. You know, I just kind of step on it, and you know, you do a twisting. So I step with my foot on the axle, with the lowers sticking straight up. The tool is up towards me, and I burnish this way. You could do a lot of turns, and you know, on really tight ones, sometimes this can be a real workout. You know, you sweat a lot with this. So lots of turns. There you go. We did the top one. Now we're moving on to the bottom one. Same thing, lots of turns and push. Okay, and it's free. Now we're going to do the same thing, but in reverse. All right. right. So that's that. I think that about covers it. I think that about does it. I think you guys probably get the point. You can, repeat the same process for the other side.